You're listening to the Unshamed podcast. We talk about important topics that are culturally taboo when it comes to the female body, mind, and soul. We want to break down shame that surrounds these topics so that women can be empowered in their everyday lives. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this with your friends. Hello, guys. Welcome to the Unshamed podcast. We're actually not broadcasting, from Nashville, which is crazy. And I'm here with Sheila Harper. And Sheila is the founder of an organization called SaveOne. And you guys will hear about that in a minute. But on the Unshamed podcast, we talk about topics that are typically taboo in regular conversation. We try to uncover some of the shame that goes into those topics by sharing our stories and talking about things. So Unshamed is sponsored by Zoe Community. We're an Irish organization where we empower communities to support women in crisis pregnancy. And we also want to connect women to that support as well. So we want to do our part to have these conversations about things that are typically shameful as a way to counteract shame culture. And shame culture, it really plays a huge part in women making decisions like abortion. Like Sheila's actually going to talk about that today. Decisions that they might not necessarily make unless unless they felt that shame from their culture around them. So today we are going to talk about a really painful subject for lots of people. We're going to talk about pregnancy loss, specifically abortion today. And there are a few ways that somebody can experience, pregnancy loss. I shared my story about miscarriage in one of the earlier episodes. Today, Sheila is going to share about her story when it comes to abortion. So, there's a lot of, I think we need to have sort of a trigger warning before we talk about anything else, because some of us have been through this. Not everyone who's gone through abortion will feel sad or will feel grief or any of the other things that a lot of people feel. Some people feel normal afterwards, but a lot of people do feel triggered when they hear stories of other people's abortions or pregnancy loss. So if that's you, just be kind to yourself. Make sure that you stay grounded in the moment. And I can share with you some of the ways that our therapists who work with us, what they tell us to do to help feel grounded. One thing is to take a minute and find an object in the room that you're in. And that kind of, if you can look at that while you're listening, it can kind of help you stay present in the room, in the moment, and not sort of, you can kind of get up into your head and feel a lot of, the feelings that you're feeling will feel more intense when you're not present in the room. So that's one way to look at an object. Another way is I can't really because my chair is really tall, but plant your feet on the ground or push your chair or push your back like that into your chair. And doing that can help you feel like you're solid on the floor, your back is supported, and can really help you feel present. Another thing, I'm wearing my ring right now, my Zoe ring actually, is to take something that you're wearing or anything that's around you. I actually have a smooth little stone in Ireland that I have from the sea that I sometimes I kind of hold that when I need an object to hold that helps me feel calm. But my Zoe ring is textured like this, so sometimes I just take my finger and go like this on my ring, but other people use a watch or anything like that, and that can help you feel calm and connected to where you are right now. All right, that's some of the grounding stuff out of the way. So
that's good stuff.
I know. So I didn't come up with it. It is not from my head. But Sheila, would you like to tell us about yourself and your story, how you got to where you are right now?
Sure, I would love to. Well, as you know, my name is Sheila Harper. Excuse me. And I'm the president and founder of a nonprofit organization called SaveOne. And what we do at SaveOne is we help men, women, and families recover after abortion. And we do that because of seeing the turmoil and the aftermath that families go through after making this choice. It's not just a simple choice that people make and they go on with their life. And like you said, abortion does affect people in all different ways. And you don't always just have this life-altering, you've got to crawl in the bed and be depressed for the rest of your life reaction.
Yeah.
But most of the time there is some type of aftermath that a person goes through, whether it's a man, a woman, or a family member. This whole organization was birthed out of my own abortion pain. An abortion that I had on March 29th, 1985. It's a day I will always remember. That day will always be ingrained in my head, because for abortion for me was the most regrettable, most humiliating mistake of my entire life. I spent the next 7 years just hating myself, hating life. I attempted suicide during this time. I became reliant upon drugs and alcohol just to get through the day. And I just knew that checking out was the answer. And of course, God miraculously saved me and redeemed me, and through a simple Bible study that I found that I went to, and thinking, how's a class going to help me?
Yeah.
This is dumb. But I was willing to try anything at that point, because I knew what I had been doing had not been working.
No.
I wasn't getting any better. I was only getting worse.
Yeah.
And so I went to this Bible study, and it gave me back my life on a silver platter, pretty much.
Wow.
And it was literally just women who came around me and loved me and wanted to see me well and whole. And so I mean, seriously, since then I haven't been able to be quiet about what God did for me, because it was Jesus who came in and healed me from the inside out.
Yeah.
That was in 1992. I worked in the pro-life movement till 94. I did their abortion recovery, the pregnancy center that helped me. I did their abortion recovery. We moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 94. And I kind of thought, okay, my time in the pro-life movement is over.
Yeah.
I've paid my penance. I don't have to do anything else. And so I came to Nashville thinking no one will ever know about that Sheila that was in the other town that, was so messed up and had the abortion. But then, of course, God had a different plan. And He kind of led me to, or not kind of, but He led me to start teaching that same class here in Nashville. And from that very first class that I taught here in Nashville, SaveOne was born, simply because I heard a woman say, if I could just save one unborn baby, I would be willing to tell my story.
Yeah.
And I realized those 2 years that I taught abortion recovery at the pregnancy center, someone always said that in the class, if I
Really?
could just save one unborn baby. And so I started, but it was that night that it was like all the bells and whistles went off. And I knew God was wanting me to pay attention to that. And I started praying into it and asking God, what is it about that phrase that you want me to pay attention to? And it was from there He just started downloading that I needed to write my own curriculum. I needed to start an organization, because these women at the time, and now men and family members, needed a platform to tell their stories.
Yeah.
Because the truth is what sets us free.
Yeah.
And we're not hearing a lot of truth in the world. We're hearing that this is a good choice for women, a good choice for men, and abortion isn't. And so I started SaveOne thinking it was just going to be a little Bible study I taught at my church. And now, today, 20 years later, we have over 300 chapters in 25 different countries
That's
around the world.
amazing.
It's been amazing.
And Ireland has a chapter. So
Yes.
we just started working on ours.
You're
and
one
kind
of our chapter leaders.
I know, and it's very interesting because Ireland's the first. Is it the first English-speaking country other than the United States? That or is there one in Canada or?
There are some chapters in Canada. You are our. That from what I can think right now, and I can't keep up with all the chapters, which is a good problem.
Yeah,
to
that
have,
is a good problem.
I think you're the only chapter in the UK.
Oh yeah. Or like in the English speaking Europe. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so amazing how far things have come with just, how like our pain, we feel like sometimes our pain, what in the world could this be useful for?
Oh, yeah.
But, when you were back in that situation, because there are a lot of people listening, men and women will have been in that place where they felt this is the decision I have to make. I can't really see any other way. What was the kind of motivating factor for you making, okay, I have to go to the clinic, I have to do this? What was that? Was there a one thing, or was it multiple things?
Well, it was probably multiple things. One was the guy that I was with. I knew I did not want to stay connected to him through a child for the rest of my life.
That's so common.
And so,
lots of stories.
because I knew he wasn't a good influence on me, but I mean, it wasn't all his fault. I was a willing participant in everything, but I knew that. So that was my number one thing. Like, okay, do I really want to stay connected to him? And then I went to one of my best friends, and I told her. She was the only other person that I told that I was pregnant. And she said, oh, it's no big deal. I had an abortion when I was 15. And when she said that, I was like, oh, that's it. That's my answer. That's my easy way out.
Yeah.
And I was having a lot of fun with him, but I thought, I can get this taken care of, and then we can just go back to our regular life and keep on having fun.
Sounds great.
And I was in college, and I thought, that's my answer.
Yeah.
And so I made the appointment at the clinic, and the closer that date got, that March 29th, I kept thinking, like, something about this doesn't feel right. What is it? But I kept justifying it, thinking, well, the Supreme Court made it legal, so they wouldn't, they're a whole lot smarter than me, so I thought they won't make something legal that's bad.
Yeah, that's actually really logical. I mean, I was reading, so we got to read her book that she wrote, many books that she's written, but one called Survivor. That's a short one. That's just this story, basically. But when I was reading what you wrote, I was like, that's really just so thought through. But why on earth would it be legal if it was harmful? It's a really logical train of thought.
Yeah, we trust those in authority. And I thought, there's got to be more to it, because they wouldn't do that. But I went through with it, and then found out months later that my friend who had told me it was no big deal had attempted suicide at 16 after she had the abortion at 15. She didn't tell me that part. And so that is another motivation to get truth to the public for me.
It is, it's tough, and I'm sure you've heard this from other people. There's a lot of people out there who go on with their lives, and they, if you've read stories from the website Shout Your Abortion, have you been there?
Yes.
And so you hear about all that kind of stuff, and then you hear people saying, they feel offended that people would share their stories, honest stories about what they've gone through, and they say, look, I felt this, and that, and I feel like it was directly related to the abortion. But those people feel offended because they feel like you're shaming me for something that I've done. What's your response in terms of that? Because this is, we talk about shame on this podcast. So I hear that word shame a lot when women are, and men who've, been through this and are saying, stop doing that. Stop saying this stuff, because you're making me feel shame for what I did. And I don't feel shame for it, but you're forcing that on me. It's troubling that somebody would feel that way. And that's not your intention at all, or anyone's intention when they tell their honest story, because this is what actually happened to you. So I'm sure you've had that thrown at you. What's kind of your, response when that comes at you?
Well, this is what I usually think, and it may not be popular, but you can't shame someone who doesn't feel some type of shame. Like, if I did something and I was fine with it, and someone else felt like it was bad, if I was truly fine with it, it wouldn't force me to feel shame because you feel shame. Does that make sense? That's on you. It's not on me. So to me, you can't be shamed unless there's already some type of uncomfortable knowing already there. And so I feel like a lot of times when they push back and they're so mean and so vile, they're trying their hardest to get society to accept what they did, because they don't want to face what they did. And I get that. It is a denial and a deception because I just believe more in humanity, I guess. I don't believe that you could ever pay someone to take the life of your child and it not bother you in some way. That it may be some type of phobia that it has turned into, or, it is, I just have to believe that that you would have to have a seared conscience to go and do that and it not affect you in some way. And it's not always this horrible, detrimental, but it does show up like in not being able to sustain a relationship or having trust issues or turning to pornography for sexual gratification or, it's outlets like that show up in your life that weren't there before the abortion.
Yeah.
I always just turn to the fact and rely on that. I tell people, I'm just going to help the people who this does bother.
Yeah.
Because I'm not here to try to make you feel bad if you don't feel bad.
No.
That's the Holy Spirit's job.
Yeah.
And there's enough people out there that really do. They're struggling every day after this choice who I want to get to and help. Get their life back and put their family back together and things like that. I don't believe you can violate God's word in such a detrimental way and not have some type of consequences.
Yeah. It is true, like, you're not there to put thoughts in people's heads.
Right.
Like, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to make somebody feel guilty for something that they just don't feel guilty about.
Right.
But like what we do with Zoe, like Zoe's not there to go and grab someone who's made a decision to have an abortion and change their mind. We're there to help, support women who they don't feel like that's what they want to do, but they don't feel like anyone's helping them have any other option. So that's what we're there for. If someone says, "Hey, I want to go do this," we're not there to make people's decisions for them. And likewise, like, you're not there to say, "Hey, do you feel fine about your abortion? Here, let me tell you something that's going to make you feel terrible." Like,
exactly.
Because you've been there, like, that it's a really big ask. To present someone with, here's my story, here's how it affected me, and would you consider listening to my story? Like, if you're someone who's been through abortion and you're fine, you're grand, you're going on with your life, everything's great, but deep down you might know something's not quite right. Man, it's a big ask to ask someone to possibly open up their mind a crack and allow themselves down that road to explore those feelings, because exploring those feelings could mean massive psychotherapy bills. It could mean lots of upending their lives.
Yeah.
It's a huge ask. And so, that going into it, that's a big deal that you could be asking of somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why maybe some people might be responding so in hateful ways, because I know sometimes whenever we feel affronted or we feel like, we're asked to change something about ourselves, that could be very drastic. We do not like that at all.
Oh,
and so, that might be part of what's going on with some people.
And I realize too, a lot of times when it's been decades that they have since their abortion, a lot of times that has become their identity. And so I'm stepping in wanting them to change their identity, if that makes sense. Like, I'm wanting them to change because they don't recognize that they see everything through the filter of that abortion.
Yeah.
And they relate to people and keep people at arm's length or something like that, so no one finds out their secret.
Yeah.
So I'm asking them to come out and, not go tell everyone they've had an abortion, but to change the way they think about everything. So it's really, it is a huge ask.
Yeah. Off the top of your head, do you know about how many people have been through SaveOne and, like in total? I don't know if you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Over 20 years.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's been tens of thousands.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I don't have a definite number.
Yeah. And it's hard to keep track, especially with so many chapters and
we hold
Yeah.
our chapters very loosely. Like
Yeah.
they don't have to send in reports or
Yeah.
anything like that. We just stay in touch and encourage and strengthen.
yeah. Well, I think I have 3 questions that I want to ask
Sure.
you. Some stuff that I think maybe our listeners would kind of resonate with as far as what do we do now? What do we do with this information? So question 1, like, what do you wish would change about society in terms of being welcoming to women facing unplanned pregnancy?
What would well, we
Yeah.
need to talk about it. We need to open up, especially in the church, because so many times in the church, I've seen this through this 20 years with men and women coming to us, they turn to the church last.
Yeah.
Like when they've exhausted everything else, then they'll turn to the church. But we need to make this an open subject so people can turn to the church and feel like this is going to be a place that's going to give me grace, that's
Yeah.
going to hold up my arms, that's going to support me. And so
Yeah.
many times churches think if they talk about it and say that they will offer support to a young woman who has gotten pregnant and not married, then they're putting their stamp of approval on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, why do we single out this one sin and we don't deal with everything? It's
Yeah.
like this one is like, you
It's
know,
visible. Oh, you
Yeah.
can see a pregnant belly.
and
oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
so many times we've heard stories of church girls who come in and they have been in church their whole life. I had one girl, I've never forgotten this. She was in Bible college, was involved at her church, ended up getting pregnant by a guy who went to her church. And she said, I felt like I had to protect Jesus' reputation.
What?
And so they went and had an abortion
Okay.
and kept it secret for decades because she didn't want to. She felt like it would damage her witness, and which I mean it would have. But at the same time, I mean, what's most important? So anyway, and I've heard stories of girls having to confess from the pulpit
So
that
horrible.
they're pregnant. And what these actions do is literally drive people toward abortion
Yeah.
instead of driving them toward Jesus.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, you know what, we have all sinned.
Yep.
We've all fallen short. And so, you know, whatever you've done, you're welcome at this church, and we're going to
Yeah.
hold you and support you, and just like we do other people.
Yeah.
But with this one sin, you're going to get kicked out of Bible college. You'll get kicked out of, you know, the youth group. And so we're literally forcing them toward
Yeah.
the abortion decision instead of toward life and love.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're not calling sin, but at the same time, is that what Jesus would have done? Like, is that what he did with the woman at the
No
well?
way.
Is that what he did with the woman who was caught in adultery?
No.
No.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, we, from the beginning, those of us who started Zoe, were kind of like, shoot, Jesus, and just the way he is with us now, you know, like all this, you know, all of our faults and all of our anxieties and all that stuff, and then how he was, you know, when he was on the earth. Gosh, that's how we want to do things with Zoe. That's how you want to do things with SaveOne.
That's right.
I mean, I can't think of a better example in how to treat people who have done things that they're like, whoops, or, you know, that they just, they feel like everyone else around them would criticize them. But Jesus is never critical. And how in the world has the church, being a certain part of society, how have we gotten so far gone from his heart? I have no idea.
know. Yeah.
But yeah, that's one way. Like, I agree. Like, I'd change how we welcome women you know.
Mm-hmm. And Jesus
Yeah.
was critical sometimes.
I mean, like,
with church people.
Oh, but yeah, he was critical where he needed to be.
Exactly.
But question two, what do you wish that you could change about society? And that's just like in the church, out of the church, all over, in terms of how women and men are treated who've gone through abortion. You know, if there was something you could change about how people are treated.
Oh gosh, there's so
a big
much.
question.
I know that's a big question. I'll try to slim down into something short. But what I would want to change, the first thing that comes to my mind is truth. We need to speak truth. We need to take this abortion issue and debate out of the political arena,
Yeah, does not belong
and put
there.
it into the church arena, because this is a mandate from God that we're the ones that are supposed to be defending life, and that it's not something to be debated on in committees. And so anyway, when you think about how that political mess affects those who have had abortions, men, women, and families, then they become hopeless, because there's like, I mean, they're looking at it thinking, this is a political issue. How am I ever going to get help for this when I see these politicians screaming and yelling and all of this stuff? And so it just makes them feel hopeless. So if I could change anything about society, it would be that more truth, real truth, is available to people, because truth is what sets people free, and that they would feel safe to come out and say, you know what, this is what I did. I know I am dealing with aftermath for this choice, and I need help.
We do need to have more safe spaces for people to tell their stories.
Absolutely.
Because there's just not a lot of safety out there for people. And but, you know, God will show us as time goes on how to creative ways to make more spaces for people.
That's
know?
right.
Okay, so last question. For our listeners who have been through abortion and they feel sadness, they feel something's not right, if that's how they feel, is there anything that you could suggest, one thing they can do right now to take a step towards healing, towards feeling better, you know?
Yes. Well, of course, I always point people to SaveOne, because we're literally just giving them God's word, and that's what heals people from the inside out. A very simple, anonymous, very private thing they can do. If you go to our website, SaveOne.org, it's all spelled out, SaveOne.org.
Yeah.
If you go to that and just sit on the home page for a few minutes, a pop-up will come up, and it'll say for your name and email address,
Okay.
and it just goes right into our data bank. We don't get like a notice that says, oh, Katie Edgman signed up for we don't see any of that. It just goes right into the database. But if for your name and email address, you get a downloadable 5-day reading plan.
Okay.
And that 5-day reading plan it's just a little sample of our Bible study. And so we've had many people say, that's what got me started.
Okay.
That's what made me think I really could do this Bible study and get help. So it's just like a little sample, but it's enough to get you started, to open up this wound and get you thinking about things. And and it's free.
That's awesome. And I mean, even if somebody isn't, like, there are listeners who aren't Christians, they wouldn't normally read the Bible, they wouldn't feel comfortable with that. But it's even something useful that they can just kind of dip a toe into and just kind of suss it out a little bit. And with Zoe, we're actually workshopping an additional kind of just a talking group with people who they don't feel comfortable reading the Bible, but they want to talk about this. or like, hey, I might feel comfortable in the future, entry point kind of a deal. We're just kind of working on stuff like that. But, it can't hurt, right?
That's right.
It can't hurt. It's
That's
not going
right.
to hurt you. So.
And we do have people sometimes that are like, I don't know about all this Christian stuff.
Yeah.
But I always say, just trust me for a few minutes, like just try it. And like you said, dip your toe in. You can do this in the privacy of your own home. It doesn't mean you got to go tell the world, and just try it at home. See what happens.
Well, we kind of tell everybody too, if you're going to embark on any kind of a study or anything like SaveOne or anything else, you need to have ready the person you want to go to for your mental health chats. Good. You need to have a psychotherapist ready and have an appointment and get going with that before you start this, because this might open a door to a lot of things that you need to talk about. And if you don't have somebody ready, it could be it could be hard to dig yourself out of that. So if you're in Ireland and you're listening, we have a database of people we can send you to. If you're ready to do this as something you want to do, then let us know, send us an email. You can hit like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. Good. Send us some info and we'll help you out. Yeah.
That's good. Can I add one quick thing? This made me think about it while you were talking. When I went through that abortion recovery Bible study and I got my life back, I had suffered sexual abuse as a child as well.
Yeah.
And so when I had such remarkable results using God's word in this Bible study, I found a biblical counselor. And I went to her because I was like, okay, I'm free from this abortion, but I know this sexual abuse still bothers me. So it was like I had that person that I could turn to because it uncovered so much. And so I went to her, met with her for 18 months, dealt with all of the sexual abuse, and ended up writing another study called Finding You.
Yeah,
and people are using that for small group studies to deal with sexual abuse. So much could come from just simply dealing with our wounds.
Yeah, and it's hard to be ready to deal with those wounds. I know from firsthand experience going through therapy, dealing with wounds is actually physically exhausting.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
so hard to deal with that. And we don't want to do it because we get comfortable. We actually get comfortable in our wounds. We know it. It's familiar. We don't have to do any work. It's okay. But
that's what I'm talking about with identity.
Yeah.
It becomes just this warm blanket that is you.
Yeah, totally. It's harder to step out of that. But stepping out of that, you look back at your old self and you're like, ugh, how did I live like that? That was terrible.
Exactly.
But you don't realize it when you're in the thick of it, Well, Sheila, thanks for sharing your story. And I hope that ultimately this helped everybody feel like, anyone who's been through abortion or who's maybe contemplating it, I'm not alone. There's lots of other people there who've been through it. Everybody has their own unique story. So even if you're listening and you're like, I don't agree with her, all the stuff she's saying, blah, 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 that's her story and you have your own. If you have your story that you want to share, we can help you. We can help you share it. Let us know in the comments. Send us an email to unshamed@zoe.ie, and we will talk to you about how do you want to share what you've gone through. So let us know. And next time we will be talking about, we're going to be talking with my sister-in-law. So it's really special to have her on the podcast. And we're going to talk about the subject of infertility. So that's also a really heavy one. So we'll go back into those grounding things then. But until next time, keep living unshamed. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unshamed podcast. Join us next time for another topic that we hope empowers you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with your friends.